Hello all, my name is Anubandh KATÉ. I'm very happy to invite two of India's leading investigative journalists who have written on the Rafale deal scam. And I'm also lucky to be joined by Yann PHILIPPIN, investigative journalist from Mediapart, who has extensively written and spoken on this deal. He has also collaborated with his Indian counterparts. So welcome all of you. Uh, I will just briefly introduce. So Ravi NAIR is an investigative journalist and he is the lead author of this book. He has worked with Paranjoy GUHA THAKURTA, who is quite a renowned name in India, and he is the co-author of this book. And Yann PHILIPPIN, as I said, is from Mediapart. So before I get into the details of this contract, I must say some personal disclaimer that I'm 42 years old and I'm born in India. I have studied in India. I'm grown up in India, and I have spent 10 years in Europe, including 8 years in France. And deals or issues such as these are very important. So I begin now our session by sharing with you something that would give us a macro view. India is the biggest arms importer. So this is the chart from the Financial Times this year in February, and the amount is around $15.4 billion. And I suppose it was not clear in the article, but it's a cumulative buy for the last few years. I invite you to comment if you have any, all three of you. The next slide is the market share of the leading exporters of major weapons. And you see the number one is United States, there's Russia, and France is third, neck to neck with Russia. And these figures keep changing. For example, I suppose in 2022, France was the second and Russia became the third one. Next slide is, this is the French imports in different years of the arms. And in 2021, it was 11.7 billion. And in 2022, it's not part of this chart, it crossed more than 20 billion. Next is which countries are the buyers of the French armaments. So you see, first is Egypt, 12.28 billion euros. Then is India, the second one, 11.79. Then there is Qatar and Saudi Arabia and other countries. Next is which are the biggest French company, arms company, which sell or manufacture these armaments. So Thales, Dassault, Safran, Naval Group are the leading companies. Then you have how the Rafale has fared in the last few years in terms of sell. So you can see a shoot up. 26 Rafales were sold in 2029, and then in 21, 25. So these were delivered. And I think Ravi can tell us more and link what happened in terms of India's buy of these deals and which year. As a help to our audience, because this is a very complex topic and there will be a lot of acronyms which are difficult to follow. So I have just put up abbreviations from the book, and the audience can later come back and check if they need. Yeah, so I invite you, if you have any comments on this general slides, you are welcome to comment, any one of you, or we can proceed.
I have one small comment.
Yeah.
India is one of the biggest buyers of armaments from Israel. That's one point I wanted to flag. And this proportion has varied over the years, but often 1/4 or 25% of all the armaments exported from Israel have been purchased by India. And something which is relatively recent is the joint ventures that have come up between Israeli and Indian companies which have been selling equipment, Indian joint ventures selling equipment to Israel, including the military grade drones which have been used in Gaza of late. And I just thought I'll make this as an observation. And one of these joint ventures making these drones, also called UAVs, unmanned aerial vehicles, with a joint venture involving the Adani Group of India. And there are several other equipments which are being exported now from India to Israel, though, as you have pointed out, India is a net importer of armaments and the largest in the world after Saudi Arabia.
True.
That's all I want to say.
True. We have a special slide of joint ventures, and of course, we will talk what you said there. So I continue. I would now like to ask the question why there was the need to write this book, and I refer to the introduction that you have written in the book. And the main motivation was that you believe that the full story about this deal, Rafale deal, needed to be told in detail. And you wanted to demystify the complex technical aspects of the deal, importantly for the lay reader as well as the specialist. And it's a proof that I am talking and discussing this book with you, being a lay reader, because I have no background of legal terms or air defense deals. So I congratulate you for that. You have said that you have not put out information that can be construed to be against the national security interests of India, which is important. And you thought it was important to talk about this book because substantial expenditure of taxpayers' money is involved in this deal, and there is a public interest that has to be served. And you tried to place on record all sides of the story by interviewing dozens of knowledgeable persons, those which were supportive and also opposed to this deal. And some of them agreed to talk and not others. So this is what I take out from the book. If there's anything additional you would like to clarify why there was a need to write this book, I invite you to speak now.
Would Ravi, would you like to say something about why you felt it was important to write the book?
Anubandh, if we look at defense deals, defense deals always attract a lot of controversy, and most of the time, this controversy is never addressed, never put it. And after some time, maybe some discussion in the parliament, some ruckus in the parliament, a few articles here and there, and it just vanished. Defense purchase for any country, it's important nowadays, especially when a country like India, which has two porous borders and two nuclear powers as its neighbors. Defense is very important. Defense purchase is very important. Defense capabilities of that country is very important. At the same time, when a particular defense deal is structured, it should go through a lot of checks and balances. And there should be a lot of discussions among which part of the military, like its Air Force or Navy or the military itself, if they are purchasing, within that group, a lot of discussion should happen. And at the end of the day, public money is utilized for these purchases. In this particular case, one thing very unprecedented happened. Like on an official visit, the Prime Minister of India, without any consultation, without any pre-discussions, went and announced in France that India will purchase 36 Rafale fighter jets from Dassault Aviation on a government-to-government deal. The number, of course, there was a trial, there was a tender. Most of those things are detailed in the book and explained in the book with much details. But in this particular case, it was just a unilateral decision. And just because of this, Dassault didn't have to share the transfer of technology. They didn't have to transfer the technology or the know-how how to manufacture a jet, which was financially a good decision for Dassault, but for India, it was a bad decision. That's one part of it. Second, when the deal was announced unilaterally, the price of the product shot up. It went more than double. Was from which was earlier structure. There are many reasons for that, but it was a loss for India on that way. So we thought it's and the involvement of a private company in the name of Reliance ADAG, Anil Dhirubhai Ambani Group. So we thought these are important things. It should be put out, and all the facts should be available in the public domain in the form of a book. That's how this book was written.
If I can add to what Ravi has said, as his co-author and the publisher of the book, firstly, this Rafale deal and the controversies around this deal have been there for more than 6 years now. And yes, all defense deals attract a lot of attention, attract a lot of controversy. And as Mr. N. Ram, the Narasimhan Ram, who is associated with the Hindu publication, The Group, and he was one of the persons who highlighted the Bofors deal that resulted, one of the contributory factors behind the electoral defeat of Rajiv Gandhi in 1989 were the charges on the Bofors deal. These are Swedish field guns or howitzers. Now, what happened 6 years ago is when the Bofors deal took place, Ravi, in a sense, was the first person to highlight the deal. And he wasn't a journalist then, remember that.
Rafale.
Sorry, I beg your pardon, what did I say?
You said Bofors. It's Rafale.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
Ravi was the first person to highlight.
It was not 6 years ago, it was 7.5 years ago.
7.5 years ago. Okay, I stand corrected, Ravi. 7.5 years ago, Ravi became an accidental journalist. Ravi used to work in the corporate sector, and just literally out of the blue, he started connecting the dots and started putting out information in the public domain. And he published a long piece, which was published as a series of articles in a website called Janata Ka Reporter. And then this entire controversy was picked up by Rahul Gandhi, who is a prominent leader of the Indian National Congress, the main opposition party, who is currently the leader of the opposition in the lower house of parliament in India at present. But the point I'm making is something else. In 2019, before the elections, Rahul Gandhi made this into an election issue. The slogan was Chaukidar Chor Hai, which translated means the person who's supposed to guard you is himself the thief. Now, the BJP hit back at it. And they said, Main bhi chaukidar hoonga, that we are the guardians, we are the people who protect the country. And the Rafale deal failed to have any impact on the electoral outcome in 2019. So people were asking us, why are you bringing this up again? The Supreme Court has said there was nothing wrong. We critically examined the Supreme Court's decision, and we argue that the Supreme Court ignored several important aspects which it should not have. Now, that's not easy for two journalists to do. I mean, we are, after all, criticizing the highest court of the land. We also critique the Controller and Auditor General. So everybody says, oh, the government got a clean chit. It was given a clean chit by the Supreme Court. It was given a clean chit by the Controller and Auditor General of India. Whereas in this book, we argue in some detail that it wasn't as simple as that. I mean, it took us a lot of time, a lot of effort, and as you pointed out, Anubandh, that we spoke to people who support the deal. We spoke to Air Marshal Raghunath Nambiar. We had a detailed conversation with him, and he vetted the transcript of the manuscript before we published it, and it's towards the end of the book, and it's given in great detail. It was given in great detail, and yes, and Air Marshal Nambiar chose to redact certain portions of the book, and the last point that I really. Huh?
Not the book, his interview.
No, the transcript of the interview.
Yeah.
The transcript of the interview that we had with him. And then 2 points I want to say before I conclude.
And please complete. He redacted almost 40% of what he has said.
We were faithful to him. We still have the recording of what we did. We were very, very faithful. We kept our word. We spent a long time with him. This is August 2020. The book came out like more than 2 years later. And we spent a lot of time with him, and it lasted nearly 3 hours, our interview. We were first surprised that he gave us the interview. And then I suppose when he saw the transcript, he realized maybe he should not have said what he did. Be that as it may, we put it whole. I mean, if you go through the book, from page 422, the interview with him is going all the way from 422 page number.
Yeah, I have specific questions for you related to
last for 465.
Right. But
one last point I wanted to make before the entire discussion that we had on the occasion of the launch of the book, which was December 2022. At the Constitution Club of India, where experts spoke. It's all available on YouTube for anybody and everybody to see. And the longest chapter of the book is called The French Connection. And that, I mean, everything now have what happens in France now is very, very important. And I'm sure Yann and others will be able to talk about it. But the book has done better than we expected. We were expecting people to, file some sort of a defamation suit, but not a single line has been refuted. After the French president came to India, and this was in August of 2023, we brought out, after India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi visited France as a guest of honor in July 2023, during the Bastille Day celebrations, we updated the book and we added some new parts to the book just so that we could be updated with everything that we wrote about it. And so this is the background to the book. And for the information of those who are watching you and viewing you, we have the English edition in both hardbound and paperback, but we also have an edition of the book, a translated version of the book in Hindi and in Marathi. And who knows, maybe we are hopeful it will come out in the French language.
Certainly, we would look up to that. What I found was remarkable about this book was also the fact that a lot could be said by just observing what's being said by different ministries, different politicians in India, in France. And I think that's a remarkable work that you have done. You talked about NRAM. And I think before we get into the details of this deal and the book, I would like to just read a passage that he has written for you, and he summarizes well why this is a scandal. So he says, NRAM, the document-backed charges leveled against the government included the bypassing of institutions and the violation of mandated or standard procedures laid down for defense acquisitions, resulting in a massive loss to the national exchequer. striking an arbitrary new deal at exorbitant cost to shortchange the Indian Air Force, getting the Prime Minister's office to conduct parallel negotiations with the French side, thus weakening the negotiating position of the Ministry of Defense and the Indian negotiating team, covering up the corruption involved by refusing to disclose the pricing details, and further, by dropping the critical provisions for anti-corruption penalties days before the signing of the intergovernmental agreement, giving up the demand for bank guarantees and rigging the offset clauses and arrangements in a deal to favor a few crony capitalists. So this is well summarized, I suppose. Ravi, do you have a comment, or Paranjoy, on this summary that Ram has offered to us? Ravi, we can't hear you.
You have to unmute yourself.
Yeah.
But I think Enram's summary is an excellent summary.
See, that's the crux of the book, and that's what we try to unearth and publish. So that's a book. As observers and as journalists, this is our findings. So Ram summarized it in a beautiful way. That's it.
Perfect. I agree. I would like to share something now with you again, because I think it's important to look at the chronology of events, because there are lots of things which happened in this deal. And the word chronology is now made famous thanks to our Home Minister. So I think it's important to talk about this. I was surprised when I read the book that all this started with the Indian Air Force wishing for more Mirage 2000, which are two French made by Dassault, I guess. And then this was broadly converted into a request for 126 Rafale, out of which 18 were to be flyaway, to be made and fabricated, manufactured in France, and 108 in India by Hindustan Aeronautical Limited, a public sector company. And in the end, finally, what we got were just 36 Rafale and all flyaway. So I will walk you through this chronology, and later you can comment. So the NDA government, National Democratic Alliance government, under the Prime Ministership of late Atal Bihari Vajpayee, this was between 1998 to 2004. And broadly, in that period, not much happened. Or what they decided, that there will be no single vendor purchase, and there should be competitive bidding. And the actual action started under the UPA, United Progressive Alliance first government, from 2004 to 2009. And basically, the first document that we had was Air Staff Qualitative Requirements, ASQR, with 630 odd points. This was used to make the very detailed request for proposal in 2007. The bids were received in 2008. Then we moved to the UPA-2 government, 2009 to 2014. So the submission of selection report by Indian Air Force was in 2011. The request for revised commercial bids by the government was made thereafter. The declaration of the lowest bidder was in 2012. The negotiations with Dassault were conducted from February 2012 to April 2014, which took 26 months in all. And then Dassault also signed a work share agreement for the production of the aircrafts in India, as well as transfer of technology with HAL, and that was in March 2014. And the last part now is with, the interesting part, is with Modi government 1.0, 2014 to 2019. So the request for 126 aircraft was now reduced to 36, and all of them were to be made flyaway in France. And Modi, as Ravi just mentioned, to his announcement in Paris to buy 36 flyaway Rafale jets in April 2015. Then a government-to-government deal was signed in September 2016. Modi 2.0 government between 2019 to 24, sorry. So the first Rafale jet was delivered to India in October 2019, and the last one in 2022. So Ravi, Paranjoy, and also Yan, do you agree with this chronology? Are there details missed, or what do you think?
And if you look at the chronology given in the book, it's much detailed. You have taken a few selected points to show the starts, how it finalized, and the end. Uh, what happened in between, and when it happened, that's very important. So in a period of just 1 hour, if you just and within 1 hour, and you take few minutes to explain this, that won't do any justice to the book, right? I mean, Jan is here. He know a lot about the deal, but certain parts, like how the deal started, how before it is finalized, in 2011, what happened before that, and before the announcement, exactly what was going on. That some part of it Jan published, but the rest of it Jan might not be aware of, and how the ministries communicated in between them, and how when the agreement was finalized, what was the response of these ministries, right? How they opposed it, or how they put it for the competitive authority to decide. And in India, the competitive authority was just one man then, even now for that matter. So it was just a one-man show. Yeah. Without people reading the complete book, if we take this much as a chronology, I would say that we won't be doing any justice. This is just a very
Sure.
fast go through.
Sure, Ravi, this is a beginning. This is not an end, and this is an invitation to the audience to read this very complex books. And I tried to summarize it, but you are right that the book is much detailed.
Anubandh,
Yeah.
in fact, the book is 532 pages, and if you look at the chronology of events, that itself is it ends at 505, but it begins 1 minute at 466. So I mean, it's well over. It's about 40 pages, a little more than 40 pages. In fact, if somebody wants us to read just the chronology of events, you'll get a decent summary of the book.
Jan, what we can do is we can share you a book. We'll send a book to you. Go through it. The most interesting part would be the RFP. The RFP floated in 2007. We redacted certain portions which we felt will affect the national security of India, so we just removed it. So in your articles, one point which came up every time when the price came up, when Dassault and the Indian authorities said that the India-specific changes, the word is India-specific changes, quote unquote, were added to the Rafale. That is why the cost went up. But this India-specific changes were already there in the RFP. Every single one of them were already there in the RFP in 2007. And the one and only extra addition which came in was that Meteor, the missile. So one add-on missile, is it enough for the price to escalate this much?
Yeah, but because you're talking about the chronology, so let's summarize. What I did is that I focused about the corruption suspicions around this deal. And what is really striking is that if we summarize, basically there are two phases. There are the UPA era with the Congress leading, and then the BJP with Modi leading. And what is really interesting in this deal is that during these two phases, there's been corruption allegations, both under UPA and under BJP. And there is one man that basically concentrates all the suspicion, which name is Sushen Gupta. So he's a very famous arms intermediary in India. He's the son of another intermediary called Dev Mohan Gupta. They have a consultancy called Indian Avitronics, which is quite famous in the defense sector. And they've been hired, this Gupta family, as early as 2001 by Dassault. So at the very beginning, when the Indian Air
Before
Force
that.
requested, basically made showed interest, for a
Yeah.
big fighter jets order. And what is really interesting is that from the beginning, there's been two different types of money flows between Dassault and the Gupta family.
Guptas.
The first one was basically basic contracts. Dassault hired Indian Avitronics consultancy as a consultant for India, and they were paying them, I would say, in a normal way. And as early as 2001, there's been a different basically hidden secret financial flows channel that has been opened. Basically, what was doing Dassault is that they ordered inflated IT services to an Indian company called IDS. And this company was giving back part of this money to the Guptas. And then they even complexified this even more, and they used a shell corporation in Singapore that was taking the money from Dassault for all these IT services stuff. But in fact, most of this money has never been used to perform IT services, and was again channeled to an offshore company of the Guptas registered in Mauritius and called Interstellar. And so during the years of the MMRCR tender, the tender for the 126 aircrafts, the one that has been cancelled in 2015. So basically between the request for proposal in 2007 and Dassault, the moment Dassault has won the tender in 2012, basically there's been millions of euros, more than 10 million euros, that has been secretly channeled from Dassault to this offshore company of this intermediary in Mauritius. And it's very complicated to know where this money ended up, because then it's been back channels through multiple kickbacks in multiple offshore companies and jurisdictions. So it's really difficult to prove, basically, that this money has actually been used to bribe Indian officials. But there is strong suspicions about it. And that's the first phase, during the UPA era. There's a very significant document that we obtained is basically a note that has been found in Gupta's digital archives. And in this note, there is basically a briefing for Dassault and a plane ticket between Paris and New Delhi. So this suggests that Sushen Gupta had a very important meeting in Paris with the top executives on Dassault. And basically, this document is a document that he wrote just before the meeting, very probably in his hotel in Paris, because the metadata is from quite early in the morning. So he was preparing what he was about to say to Dassault. And what the content of this note is really crazy, because what he says is, okay, we gave money, but we gave money to Indian officials, but you don't want to compensate the payments. Basically, you don't want to reimburse the bribes that we paid for you. And Gupta says to Dassault, this is a real problem because now we made promises and people in office are waiting for money. And if this money is not paid, they're going to put us in prison and the deal is going to be cancelled. So
now this is the time. This is the time. If you link, the Indian Air Force was pushing the Vajpayee government that they need 126 Mirage, and this was about to close down the production facility of Mirage altogether. So the Air Force Authority and the Defense Ministry went to try to take the permission from the Cabinet Committee on Security, and they projected in this way that Dassault is ready to move the production facility completely, Mirage production facility completely into India. But what was actually happening was that they were just phasing out Mirage. So that was the time this incidents what now Yann explained was happening or had happened.
Thank you. So we
So
will come back.
sorry, just to finish with that. So that's what happened, the suspicions about the UPA era. And then in 2015, as you already explained, the tender was abruptly and surprisingly cancelled and replaced by the purchase of 36 flyaway Rafale, so all made in France. So that was the beginning of the Modi era on the case. And what is also very surprising is that despite there's been this change in power, with BJP seizing power through the elections, the same intermediary, Sushan Gupta, remained very active and managed basically to be as efficient as he was under the UPA era, which is quite surprising. And during this period, there's been other very striking events that happened. And the most striking one is first that Sushan Gupta managed to obtain. So he was the agent of Dassault. He managed to obtain, we don't know how, very sensitive and confidential documents from the Ministry of Defense of India regarding the activities of the Indian negotiating team that was negotiating the deal with the French government. And we got the proof that he obtained minutes, confidential minutes of the meetings of the INT, of the Indian negotiating team. He also obtained the revised offer of Eurofighter, which was one of the competitors of the Rafale, and who was taking to go back on track by proposing a 20% discount. And so they obtained this revised offer from Eurofighter, which of course was very helpful for Dassault for our negotiations. And they even obtained confidential documents from the INT about the way the Indian negotiating team was calculating the prices. And of course, you talked about it just before. One of the controversies on this deal is about the price. And when you are in such a sensitive negotiation, let's remind that we're taking about 8 billion euros deal. So that's
Right.
totally
Yann,
huge.
I'm sorry.
Let me finish my sentence.
Sure.
When you are in a negotiation about the price and that you know how the other party is trying to calculate the prices, of course you have a huge advantage in this negotiation. And this intermediary, Mr. Gupta, of course shouldn't have obtained these confidential documents, especially right in the middle of such a sensitive and costly negotiation.
And
I want to add one point.
Yeah, but briefly, Paranjoy.
Yeah, very brief. What Yann PHILIPPIN told us shows clearly that Sushan Gupta he knew exactly what was going on in the Ministry of Defense. And therefore, Dassault was willing to pay him for his services. Now, how did that payment come? That is an interesting issue. All we know that he sold miniature versions of the plane, replica, for a huge sum of money. I think we need to go deeper into this, and I think we should. And as always, all these people saying, no, we have nothing to do with it. Everybody flatly denies it. But as we already know, as Ravi already pointed out, there is much, much more to the story that meets the eye.
Indeed.
And this 50 replica of the aircraft, which is the model, 10 times smaller, the aircraft, or how it would look if it was 10 times smaller, was, the kind of money that was paid, and it's all there in the public domain. It's truly amazing. That itself is, for us at least, a smoking gun.
Oh, sorry, and that's not all, because basically we've got the same, not same, but a similar organization as, you remember under UPA era, there's been the official payments to the consultancy of the Guptas, and there's been the secret money channeled through offshore companies. And then under BJP era, there was something a bit similar, but a bit different too, is that still there's been the official payments from Dassault to the Gupta's consultancy. And what happened is that the Gupta family won offset deals. So there's been this Rafale replica contract, so where they fabricated this replica, but there's more. There's also another company which is controlled by the Gupta, which is called DevSys Solutions, and they obtained offsetting contracts. Basically, they are manufacturing parts, for the Rafale in India. And that's basically another way to give more money to this intermediary that was already paid.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Jan. I'm sorry, we will have to move ahead because we are short of time. Just last comment on this chronology. I think my intention was also to bring to the notice of the audience that there was a kind of a blame game by the NDA government accusing the UPA government that the delay in this deal was mainly because of them. And it was the former late finance minister Arun Jaitley who said that it was the defense minister of that time, A.K. Antony, who delayed the deal. And what we can see that actually the negotiations took only 26 months, the real negotiations. And even between that time, there were accusations of corruption by the BJP minister. I think his name is Swaminath. No, I forgot his name. You will remind me. And that's why Subramaniam Swamy, exactly. Thank you. And that's why Mr. Anthony had to initiate a fresh request for investigation, which took some time.
You said. Anthony ordered the investigation towards the end of 2011, the starting of 2012. And the time frame given was that the investigation should be completed within 3 months. And according to the Modi government, the committee submitted its report after Modi government, even many months after Modi government came into power in 2015. That is why the deal was called off. Just imagine what they were saying.
True. Okay. Thank you. That's an interesting point. Just one small remark and comment, because the book is very complex, although you have tried your best, and it's very great to read the book because it's in a simplified, accessible way. But I think since there are many details, you're tempted to comment, and I understand. But for the benefit of the audience, I think we will have to stick a bit to the format. And I think the chronology is also where the 6 global aircraft manufacturers were invited, of which the first 2 are Americans, Lockheed Martin and Boeing, the American F-16 and FA-18. Then you have the Eurofighter Typhoon, which was manufactured by a consortium of British, German, Spanish, and Italian firms. Then French Rafale by Dassault. You also had Russian Mikoyan MiG G35. And the last one by Saab was Swedish JAS-39. Of these 6 aircrafts, 2 were shortlisted as the lowest bidders, Eurofighter Typhoon and French Rafale. Now, I have a few questions on this to you, because in the book you claim that the Indian Air Force was reluctant to go for the American aircraft because there could be potential sanctions against India, and then that would hinder the procurement of spare parts and other material. My question is, are we sure that the Rafale jet does not use any United States American spare part component? Because in 2003, when France went against the United States decision of attacking Iraq, United States deprived France, the French nuclear industry, with some critical components. So that's why I'm interested to know if the Rafale also has some American components in it.
Before answering to it, you said that this Eurofighter and this Rafale was shortlisted as the lowest bidders. That's not correct. Out of the 6, there was a technical evaluation. In that technical evaluation, only 2 were selected. So the 4 were eliminated. Lockheed Martin, Boeing, Gripen of Saab, and MiG-35. They were in the technical evaluation. All these were eliminated.
And in the book, we detail how the Americans were very unhappy. They were very upset.
Then two were left, Eurofighter and Dassault Aviation. In that, Dassault was selected as the lowest bidder, which was questioned by Subramaniam Swamy. Now to the second part. Dassault is completely indigenous by the Rafale is committed by Dassault. It's all French, completely French. And so the major components are coming for the engines are from Safran, again a French company, and many of the equipments are from Thales, another French major.
Sorry, if I can add something about this.
Yeah.
This is even more than this, because Rafale is officially ITAR-free. ITAR is this US regulations about arms exports, basically saying that the US can ban any exports of a weapon, which includes even one critical US component. And Rafale is officially ITAR-free, so it means that it has absolutely no critical components. So we cannot exclude that there is, small parts, which are US made. But it means that you're right, Anubandh, that basically the Rafale is not affected by US sanctions because it has no critical US component in it. So even if the US sanction India, France can still export Rafales to India.
Yeah, that's what I said. I mean, Safran and Thales plays a major role in all the critical components.
I have a question for Yann, and I'm sort of fast forwarding it a little bit, Anubandh. A lot of us are very interested to know what is the present status of the investigations that are taking place in France. We know that there are two administrations involved, that of François Hollande and then Macron. And we also know that the French government, the defense ministry, the Ministry of External, the Foreign Office, and of course the Dassault itself, they are not cooperating with the investigations and the prosecution. However, we would like to believe that the prosecutors in France have a certain degree of autonomy and independence. So I'm very keen to know from Yann,
that's a very interesting question. In France, you have two kinds of magistrates that can lead a probe. The first ones are prosecutors, which are not formally independent. And the second one, we call them investigative judges. And they are formally independent. And so that this kind of investigative judges that lead the investigations. So what is sure is that this kind of judges, because of their status, are much more sensitive to political pressure. And so to my knowledge, they really try basically to investigate this independently. The main problem that they have is that today the French probe seems to be, let's say, blocked or semi-blocked. Why? Because of the blocking from both the French and the Indian governments. First, the blocking from the French government is that basically the judges, they requested a lot of documents from the Ministry of Defense and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and both ministries said, no, we will not give you anything because this is classified. Then there's been a police raid at Dassault premises. So the judges and the anti-corruption police raided the offices of Dassault. They took a lot of documents, a lot of electronic data, emails, hard drives, everything. But then they had to go to a special judge to determine what was classified and what was not. And again, most of the documents that they seized have been declared classified, and so it's forbidden for them to use them. And so they are blocked by this defense secrecy, by this classified, which comes from everywhere, and especially from the government. And now about India, which is interesting for our audience, is that as we revealed in Mediapart, in fact, many of this information about this intermediary Sushil Gupta, which is at the core of the corruption allegations, this information come from an Indian probe, an Indian case file, which is led by the CBI and the Enforcement Directorate about another arms deal called the Shoppergate, which involved another company called
That's exactly what I said. We should take it further.
Augusta
Augusta
Westland.
Westland.
Yeah.
And so what happened is that the CBI and the ED, the Enforcement Directorate, they investigated the Augusta Westland chopper deal. They found some of the offshore companies of the Guptas, and then they discovered that the same companies has been used to channel alleged kickbacks for Dassault. And so there are a lot of very important documents in this case file. And what is interesting is that the Indian authorities never opened a separate probe about Dassault, so they discovered all these suspicious elements about Dassault, but they sat on it, they did nothing. And so what did the French judge do is that they officially requested the Indian government to provide this case file. And again, the Indian government refused to give this case file to the French judges. So basically, they are blocked on two sides. In France, they are blocked because all the authorities, the French authorities, tell the judges, this classified, you cannot use it. And when they ask the Indian governments to provide what they have, they refuse. And so, despite I would say, the goodwill of these investigating judges, given all these obstacles that are in front of them from both Indian and French government, it's going to be very difficult for them to conclude this probe.
For Dassault and French government, for helping Indian agencies not to share the documents with the French authorities, the government of India obliged by placing another 26 Rafale order for the Indian Navy, the marine version of Rafale for the Indian Navy. So everything is sealed.
True. We will come back to this topic in detail as we move on in the discussion. I would like to take you back to what we're discussing. So F-16, as we said, is the American manufactured jetway. It was also not India's choice because it's used by Pakistan's army. So that was one of the reasons as well. I have a question regarding EADS. Do you confirm that EADS is the same as Eurofighter? Because in the book, we see that's been used interchangeably. European Aeronautic Defense Space Company. Do you confirm, Ravi?
No, Eurofighter is different. Eurofighter is a consortium and EADS is basically the biggest player of this consortium, but there are other companies that are not part of EADS, which are manufacturing the Eurofighter. But the main shareholder and the main provider, of parts of technology is EADS.
It's started by EADS. That is why in the initial stages you will see a lot of EADS. Then later, when the consortium become bigger and complete, then it become Eurofighter.
I think this is a very critical and important part to understand for the audience, that all these companies that we're talking about, the French companies, especially Dassault, Thales, Safran, MBDA, they have extensive French government's shares. So these are not completely independent entities as such. For example, Dassault has around 10% of Airbus as well, and French government's share as well. Thales has 25% of French 26%. Government share. And Dassault is also a stakeholder in Thales. Yes. Safran has French government's share. MBDA has Airbus in it. So this is very complex. So one cannot say with confidence that these companies are acting on their behalf independently. Yeah, so this is what I wanted to say.
Dassault was very infamous for bribery, especially if you look at their former chairman who has been sentenced for corruption in a third country, just exempted later. And in France itself, he has been ordered a jail term for bribery to the voters. So corruption is not new to Dassault.
You have mentioned that in your book, true. Thank you. I would like to take you forward now with this slide where there were some very major important joint ventures that were happening and breaking again. So it was a bit difficult to keep track of that. but thanks to your book, I could highlight few of them. And of course, we can then link it to what Paranjoy was saying about the Israeli joint ventures as well with the Indian companies. So the major one is, of course, Dassault Reliance Aerospace Limited, DRAL, that you mentioned in the book. It was formed in 2017, but apparently it got terminated because Reliance could not bring enough funds to this joint venture. In 2023, it was dissolved.
Sorry to correct, it was not terminated completely.
Okay,
Dassault tried to take over the shares held by Reliance.
okay.
Yeah, so the transaction is not complete yet.
Okay, fair enough. Then the next one is between Adani Defense Systems Engineering and Saab. It was in 2017 September, and then it was terminated in January 2023.
Right.
Next one is Thales plus Reliance. It was formed in 2017 June. I don't know if it's still existing, but I couldn't
It's
find information.
operational.
It does, thank you. And the surprise for me was that even Tatas are into the defense business, and they had, in the initial stages of this deal, a memorandum of understanding with Dassault. So, do you have any comment? I know Paranjoy had already said about the Israeli one. Could you shed light on more on this joint ventures, please?
See, Anubandh, all the major business groups, they enter this business because it can be potentially very lucrative. So that should not surprise you. But the newcomers, including the Adani Group, have entered in after, and also ADAG entered in without any prior experience. That's important to know.
Tatas
So,
are into defense technologies since many years.
yes,
It's more than
there have been various
2.5 decades.
other groups, but
Yeah.
both the ADAG group headed by Anil Ambani and the Adani group are relatively new entrants. I think that is significant that these two groups have been able to move quite quickly ahead.
And related to this drawl, I'm sure Yann has some interesting thing to reveal. A part of it, which I also did, especially the how the money was transferred through shares into dead airports and the loss-making companies, which I reported way back in 2019. And Yann took it over from there, and he has more details on that. He will explain you.
Perfect. Thank
Yeah,
you.
they are very, very troubling because basically I could obtain the secret agreements between Dassault and Reliance for the creation of the RAL and of this joint venture, which has a factory in Nagpur in India, where they manufacture parts, for the Rafale and also for the Falcon, for the private jets. And the most surprising thing is that you remember this announcement of Mr. Modi in Paris, where when he broke the tender, the big tender, to replace it by a small purchase of 36 aircraft. And I don't know if you remember, but this announcement was super secret. Even a few days before, the official spokesperson of the Indian government said, no, the tender is going on as planned, So it was a surprise and it was a shock, even inside the Indian government. So this was a super secret announcement. And what we revealed is that 2 weeks before, Dassault and Reliance already signed the agreement. So this suggests that they could know in advance a decision that was super secret. Why? Because the consequence of this decision is that HAL, which is a big public aeronautic company, was totally kicked out of the deal. And so it seems that Dassault and Reliance, they knew 2 weeks before that HAL would be kicked out and that there was an opportunity to sign this agreement. And don't forget that Mr. Ambani is very close to Mr. Modi. That's been the suspicion from the start. So that's the first very, very surprising thing. And the second thing is that when you read the content of this agreement, you see that basically Dassault gives everything and Reliance gives nothing, especially about the money. The agreements say that Reliance will give maximum 10 millions and Dassault will give, I don't remember exactly the figure, I think it's up to 160 million. So it means that basically Reliance gives maximum 10% of the money, while Dassault gives everything else. And basically the only thing that Reliance brings in this agreement is basically helping set up this production facility in Nagpur, which is, okay, that's important, but it's not that difficult to create a factory.
What Reliance brought in was the political connections and the licensing to arrange the licenses. That's it. The rest, and the money was routed in a very strange way. Like, so the Reliance Group has very small airfields in different cities of Maharashtra, which was not operational. Maybe once in a while, some small private jet will go and land, and these companies were loss making. Out of
See,
the
that's
blue,
the point I want to take off on.
out of the blue,
Yes.
the so picked up 35.8%, nearly 36% of that company for some 40 million euros out of the blue.
This
And
is
the company was making, and the company in which they were invested was making losses, and it's the capital almost eroded.
I want to add to what Ravi is saying and what Yann has said. Firstly, the sequence of events, the dates, these joint venture agreements, these details out, suggest that there was some inside information. And that's why these deals were signed. Secondly, you must remember that the group which is headed by Mr. Anil Ambani, ADAG, according to its own lawyers, is bankrupt. So why are you dealing with a company which is in such poor financial condition and which has no experience in this area of manufacturing defense aircraft? So there are too many unanswered questions, and these questions remain unanswered till this day.
Thank you. Moving ahead, I think we should also talk a bit about the request for proposal, which is a very important document. And rather, in the book, you claim that this was world's one of the best RFPs written, and I will invite your comments on this. But I think I should first read some key points of this document. So what this document did, that it asked to identify HAL, Hindustan Aeronautic Limited, as the lead production agency. So the bidder had this constraint to choose HAL as the lead production agency. And it had to also choose Indian defense industry partner so as to manufacture of other systems and subsystems. Okay. And the vendor also had to choose HAL as its Indian offset partner, IOP. And there were also clauses of transfer of technology. The vendor had to assess, in order to choose its partner, to assess the capability of Indian production agencies. So in direct reference to HAL, which means it had no choice, sorry. And what was Dassault's approach in general to this RFP? So there is no record as such that Dassault was not happy with this RFP document or with the terms of transfer of technology or its inability to work with HAL. Because if that had been the case, its bid would have been rejected.
I want to add one point to what you have already said.
Yeah.
To put it in a bigger context, Anubandh.
Yeah.
This is the same government which talks about Make in India. This is the same government which talks about India becoming self-sufficient in the production of defense equipment, including aircraft. And here is a government which is doing exactly the opposite. It is weakening your public sector company, your government-owned company. So the hypocrisy is also to be emphasized. But Ravi, I'm sure you can add to what I'm saying.
Anubandh, there are video interviews where Eric Trappier, the CEO of Dassault, openly praising HAL, and he openly says that he had a very long relationship with HAL, and he was very happy to work with HAL before and after. Before signing the contract, the 30 deal for the contract for the deal of 36 Rafale, and even after that, even after an interview, he said that he never said anything against HAL because he has a very healthy working relationship and a long working relationship between Dassault and HAL. And he said that the relationship between HAL and Dassault goes back to the 1960s. Okay. The other thing about is that the Indian government actually put it in, structured the deal in such a way where Dassault actually forced the government of India, or arm twisted the government of India, to agree to their terms. Because Modi took a unilateral decision, which is known only to his cronies, no one else, not even to the Ministry of Defense. Just when it announced, once the Prime Minister announced a multi-billion-dollar defense deal, he cannot back out. And especially for someone who's someone like Modi, who is megalomaniacal and with autocratic tendencies. Once he announced that in a public platform, along with the president, standing along with the president of a major European country, and if he backtracks and cancel the deal later, then what happens? The countries will start to doubt his persona and India's commitment, because he didn't say this as an individual. He said this as an Indian Prime Minister. That was a blunder what Narendra Modi made, and that created a lot of ruckus, and that's why India ended up paying at least $3.5 billion higher than the required price.
True. I think what is also important to notice here that the first original RFP was issued on 28 August 2007. And then there were also revised RFPs, and you will correct me if it was in 2015 or 16, but somewhere in that period. And there is an argument made by the Modi government that the prices of the Rafale jet per aircraft was higher by 900 crore because the new aircraft has specific changes required to fulfill the needs and requirements of the country, which in a sense for me are the India specific enhancements. And it has also a new generation missile. This was the argument. So my question is, why did the initial, if we believe the government, why did the initial RFP miss these enhancement details? Do we have access to these two RFPs and compare them?
Anubandh, the 2007 RFP was never changed or amended. That's the first thing. It never changed. 2007 RFP was never changed. If you look at the Prime Minister's address, or press statement to after his announcement and meeting with Hollande in France, it clearly states, that press release clearly states that the Dassault will deliver these fighter jets or Rafale as desired by the Indian Air Force, IAF. All the specifications will remain the same. So the India specific enhancement, what they are saying, that was a part of 2007 RFP. The only addition which happened was a missile called Meteor. That is a beyond visual range supersonic missile. Though Meteor was not developed in 2007 to the present, the missile was there, but it was not up to the present configuration. Though beyond visual range missile was part of the RFP, not Meteor. The only thing changed was the addition of Meteor. That was not an addition exactly. That was a slight amendment that of one weaponry. That's the only thing changed in the entire RFP.
I just want to say as a closing line that as a reader, I was very fascinated to read this book. It was almost like a detective book, but the things are real and sordid. As Paranjoy said, the story must not end, and I think it's our collective duty. What is at stake is the exchequer's money, taxpayers' money for Indians. But I think it's also important for the French population because all this is done in their name as well. And I think it's for everybody's interest that the civil societies from both these countries take interest into this issue. And I thank you a lot for this fascinating discussion. And I'm sure that we will have a lot more to share and discover together, taking along the audience who are very anxious, I guess, as well to see how this story unfolds. So thank you again, and I look forward to talk to you very soon. Thank you.
Thank you for
Thank you
having
so
me.
much,
invitation.
Anubandh.
Thank you.
Thank
See
you.
Uh,